Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franson here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our SpotOn series. SpotOn has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called SpotOn Restaurant where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom-and-pop restaurants. To learn more, go to SpotOn.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Dan Poole is the owner and CEO of Poole's Restaurant Group. He has owned and opened over 150 restaurants throughout the United States. He's worked for Chili's and Bennigan's and has been the president of Golden Corral. He's also owned gourmet food trucks. Poole's Restaurant Group currently consists of 30 Gandolfo's New York Delis and 18 Petro chili and chips. Dan, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
Great. Thanks for asking me.
Sure, it's my pleasure. So your involvement in restaurants goes way back. Tell me about how you got started and where.
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I came home at 15. All my stuff was thrown out in the front yard, and I kind of knew I needed to eat. So I slept in friends' cars, and I stumbled into the restaurant business. So I never got out of it. So I did fast foods in the early days, and worked a couple of jobs. I was fortunate it was summertime, not wintertime, when my dad decided it was time for me to go, and so I was able to work a couple jobs, and all of them was in the restaurant. I had enough sense at least to know that I needed to eat.
Yeah, well, wow, that is quite a story. So you started out doing probably what's appropriate for a 15-year-old, fast food?
There was a chain called the Wiener Schnitzel, fast food. So okay. I did the Wiener Schnitzel and another concept called Long John Silver's. They were next door to each other and in walking distance in Amarillo. So I would literally finish up one, walk over to the other. And so for quite a while, I was eating hot dogs and fish.
Okay. Well, that's for a 15-year-old, that's a okay diet, I guess. So you did that just basically to financially survive and, as you said, to eat. How did your progression in the industry go from that point?
Well, I just stayed. So, for me, it was, just a progression. I did fast food, and then a little bit later in my restaurant career, I had got to work for. I'd actually got into the bar business for a little bit, and when the laws changed in Texas from 18 to 21, the bar business kind of went away, and I was 22 or 23 at the time, had a young son. Bar business wasn't the way you were going to go, and so I'd actually got on with Bennigan's, and that was kind of my introduction into the full service world. So I did Bennigan's and Steak and Ale for a number of years. Then I went to work for a concept with Larry Levine, the founder of Chili's. Worked with him and the Chili's and Tia's concept for a number of years. Helped them open up the new brand at the time called Tia's. Got relocated to Dallas. And then after a little bit with them, Larry, the Tia's concept wasn't going as strong as he wanted. He sold it. And I had an opportunity, what I call, I didn't go to college. I barely got out of high school. And I call my, your mentors in life a lot of times are your best professors. And I was very blessed to get an opportunity to go to work for a guy by the name of Tom Harkins. And Tom Harkins had at the time a number of Casa Olays, antipasta, and another concept called Crazy Jose's. And I had an opportunity to go to work for him. He was looking for a director of operations. That's kind of a whole other story in itself. But Tom was a Horatio Alger Award winner. And the Horatio Alger Award, if you're not familiar with it, it was Horatio Alger was a writer back in the Depression that would write stories of hope. And so the Horatio Alger Award is a very prominent award to win, and it's people who aren't supposed to make it in life. And Tom had a third grade education, couldn't read, couldn't write, became a Kirby door-to-door salesman, became the number one Kirby vacuum cleaner door-to-door salesman in the country. Again, couldn't read, couldn't write, would get all the information, go home, recite it to his wife. She'd fill out the contracts. He would go back and do the sales. And by the time I had met Tom, he had sold he had a Winnebago lots that he sold for about $30 million, got into the restaurant business and was just powering through it, and was looking for a director of operations. And so my time with him is, I kind of call it my Ivy League, because at the time that you get a chance to go to work for an individual like that had the drive, I was a sponge. I mean, he would just talk for hours. I'd sit in front of him, just listen to him, and just his successes in business and his beliefs. And so long story short, I was his director of operations for about 4 years. And that was my 4 year of Ivy League education. He actually had a massive stroke. His family came in and assumed a lot of the business, sold off a few, so forth. And at the time, I had Golden Corral, who had been recruiting me. And so at the time with Golden Corral, they had reached back to him and said, "Hey, interested?" I'd scored very high on some of their testing, whatever that means, right? And so they brought me in. Now, I was supposed to come in as a multi-unit supervisor. Next thing I know, I come out of training, and I'm as the kitchen manager in Garner, North Carolina. And so I'm kind of like, this isn't what I got hired for, and this isn't what I was thinking. And Erwin Roberts was just a phenomenal mentor for me as well. He was the area president for that division I was in. And basically he said, if you're as good as what you say you are, then you'll move up the ranks, because that's how Corral at the time which was all company, is structured. And that was true. I went from a kitchen manager to president of Golden Corral within about 5 years, and just had a phenomenal time with Corral. But what I am is I'm a builder. I enjoy growing brands and concepts. And so once I had reached to a degree a certain place, Ted Fowler, phenomenal CEO, he wasn't going nowhere. Matter of fact, I think he just retired maybe about 5-6 years ago. And that was kind of the top of the summit. And so I had a 32, had a lot of energy, and had a lot of confidence. And so, well, why not? Jumped out on my own. And ever since then, I've been doing. I've done Sunday's barbecues. I've had pizza concepts. I've had 30 pizza concepts. As you mentioned earlier, I did partnered with Johnsonville Sausage, and we did gourmet food trucks in Texas with Ralph and John Wagner, and just again another fantastic mentors, Ralph Stayers with Johnsonville. And so between barbecue and pizza, and we did full service restaurants. We had a concept called the Field House that we opened, and a few years after we were selling it, and kind of moved on. And so I've done sandwiches, which is Gandolfo's, which we're extremely proud of. And then now with Petro's Chili and Chips, helping that team grow. So there's a quick run through. So I've done a little bit with the restaurants over the years.
It sounds like it, to say the least. So you said you became the president of Golden Corral at age 32. You never went to college, and you barely finished high school. You started working at fast food when you were 15. How did you go from, fast food worker to president without getting kind of, your stereotypical education?
Well, I honestly, what's great about the restaurant business is it's the show me, not tell me. Especially back in the old days. And if you ran numbers, then you were promoted. And so many times, you'd love to say that you went through the 6-month corporate training program and you got promoted to here and there. Well, 90% of the time when you're coming out of training, you're dropped into what I used to call Vietnam, because if it was operating, running great, the manager was still there. So most of the time, the places you got dropped into, you were dropping into a battlefield. Well, my education with Tom was, and it's one thing he had taught me and I've always lived with, no matter how right you are, you're wrong if the end result isn't what you wanted. And he kept preaching that to me over and over and over when I would come to him and we'd have different issues in the store. He would always say to me, Dan, is that the end result you wanted? And I said, well, no, well, you were wrong. And that, I mean, when I talk about hard lessons, every time I turned around, he would take money out of my bonuses. So if smallware costs were high in the stores at the time I was over, he would figure a percentage out, take it out of my bonus. If, so if food cost was high, because he would say, if I can't hold you accountable, who do I hold accountable? So it was almost an unfair advantage when I got to Corral because I was used to plastic swimming pools out the back door and every trash can was dumped and you went through it with a rake and if you found spoons and knives and forks, then, the next bunch of trash cans that you went through, the servers went through. Back then when the servers would go, they would only do that a couple of times. And guess what? You didn't have spoons and forks in the trash can. And so the philosophy and the beliefs that he had taught me allowed, and then the organizations. Corral was a very much number oriented. It didn't care who you were, what your background was. It was at the end of the day, can you execute and operate? And that is one of the things about the restaurant industry is execution and operation. Because like a lot of times you'll see on the Franchise Times or the Restaurant News when it used to come out, it would show the hot concepts. People would say, "Oh, what do you think about the hot concept?" So let's see how hot they are in 5 years, and 90% of them weren't around. So at the end of the day, you have to have an operator. You can have all the fluff and talk till you're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, if you don't have consistency and you don't have retention, where you retain your coworkers, and that was another thing that Tom used to teach me. Not teach me, it used to cost me. Is if someone left during training, that was okay. Because he could say they may buffalo themselves through the interview. But after training for 12 months, they were mine. And if they left, they cost me. Well, if it was going to come out of your paycheck, how would you interview? And if it's going to come out of your paycheck for sure, how would you train? And so through that, I learned the value of retention. And that's something that I've always been good at in building teams. And create an environment where they wanted to stay. And as I went into, one thing I did learn, what I learned different from the Bennigan Steak and Ale days, and even Tia's and Chili's, was back then it was the turn and burn. You would have 25, 30-year-old men back there ready to go. And they didn't think about retention. It was work, bring them in, burn them out, get the next one. And nowadays, and also back then, people's quality of life was different. If someone would say to you, we can put 3 managers on and pay you $100,000 a year, or we can put 4 or 5 managers on and pay you 65. What do you want? Well, back then we said 100. And nowadays people say, well, pay me the 65 because I want to have a quality of life. So that culture and that style has changed a lot. So but back then it was very maverick.
So you really learned to establish positive cultures during your time coming up. Would you say that's the key to kind of, as you said, going into warlike conditions and turning it into a success?
Yeah, I would say talent times relationships equals productivity and profit. I mean, you have to have those people have to know, and it doesn't very much today. Matter of fact, probably even more so today. You just have to talk different. But back then, again, I think it was because I came from nothing. I had nothing. And the fact that I did work my way up through the ranks. So when someone sits there, and the area supervisor says, yeah, I did the bathroom too. Well, I did the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And then, I would even take, what the difference when I would go into stores, I would take my coat and jacket off and I would go work the line. Because I did that. I'd cut the meat. I'd work the line. I remember taking, back when I was multi-unit, I would, when I first got to the store, I'd take the dishwasher and I'd go check the bathrooms. They weren't clean. Take off my coat, roll up my sleeves. It's something when the dishwasher or whoever is watching you wipe and clean a toilet correctly. And that culture with that group of kids, that goes a long way. Today you may have to speak different and you actually need to spend more time. Today is it's very similar, but it's also very different because there's more of a chip on the shoulder, if you will, in today's world versus what we ran into before. Before it was, you didn't have as much, it's just different. Let's put it that way.
So you established Pools Restaurant Group, and it's been almost 20 years now. What was kind of the turning point that made you decide it's time for me to start my own thing? And then what did it look like when you first got started?
Well, the Bible says the root of all, the number one sin is pride. Well, I had pride. I was sitting there thinking that, I had grown Golden Corral. We've been very successful. And, I thought I should be CEO. I was King Kong, So what are you going to do? How are you going to get out on your own? Well, you learn real quick, because, hard work pays, but hard work doesn't ensure success. I'm smart. Well, smarts doesn't ensure success. And, the phrase I use a lot, that success usually comes from good judgment. Can't argue with that. Good judgment usually comes from experience. You really can't argue with that. But experience usually comes from bad judgment. But I literally have failed my way. I made about every mistake you could possibly make, from chasing the money to, being hard-headed to it's my way or the highway, to working 120 hours and, again, not knowing my kids at the time and justifying it because I'm working and, made every excuse there was. The only thing that ever gave me peace is I never worried. I never worried if I was going to go broke or because I knew I worked and I knew the restaurant business. But every other piece of it, in that regards, because you get out and you think the corporate world that you're a part of, they don't know nothing. You get out real quick. And the reason they were successful, no matter who they were, even the ones that have closed today, the ones that have been around for years, your Western Sizzler, Western Steers and Ryan's and all of them, they did know something. But again, through culture and through time and through evolution, these things turn and move. So for me, it was a lot of, I literally failed my way. I got out and, got into the barbecue business with Eric Holmes, and 9/11 happened. And you learn real quick, got a lot of pride, got a lot of ego. 9/11 happens and it just is what it is. So at that time, we had to make the means to part ways. I took a bloodbath. And, at the time, to be quite honest with you, I literally had $28 left in my account, and that was it. And I got a daughter heading to Princeton. I had a daughter at Princeton and got her master's at Vanderbilt and a son at Georgia, And so, at the time, there you are sitting with that, in front of you. But that's when you fall back on my mentors, my Tom Harkins, who had a third grade education, the different things that you have learned. And again, what choice do you have?
You talked about the mistakes that you made. I think mistakes can be so valuable because how else do you learn? Was there any specific one or scenario where you're like, yeah, that just turn the light bulb on in my head, or you just helped me turn the corner and move forward, incredibly? Was there any one scenario that you can describe?
No, I think it was a combination, but what I think it was come to the number one, age. Mm-hmm. As you get older, right? Like right now I'm in my 50s. I love my 50s, and you're not I always say you're in a hurry, but you ain't in a rush. I'm gonna walk down the hill, in my 30s, Lord of mercy, kick the door down, go, screaming through it, and here you go. What probably evolution of those failures, and again, the fact that I had good people speaking into me, and that I had a burning desire, and it's all numbers. If you just realize that it's a numbers game, and if you keep swinging, eventually it's going to pay. And so to me, it was all of the stuff. It was all, and then patience starts to come, and kids will help you with that. Patience started to come, and again, numbers. When you have failed, if these restaurants open and they fall and fail, you better learn from them. And when you're working those days, you better. So now I think where we are is, we're not in a hurry. We're 100% debt free. We do this because we love it. The people who are involved with us are people that are in the same, and, we're not chasing. And I think to be able to come to that realization, because you watch so many restaurants fail. Why does 8 out of 10 mom and pop restaurants fail in the first year? And why do corporations start to fail? Because they chase the money, and they take their eye off who they're serving, who is their customer. And your customers, even your managers, your franchisees, it's just that chasing the money is where I think a majority of, not all brands, will begin to fail. So to us, it was just inertia. And I'll be honest with you, God in my life was, he woke me up on the airplane. He asked me how I was doing. And yeah, I can build a company and I can tear a company down, but how was I doing? And when God woke me up, and I almost like the Christmas story where you look back at the ghost of the past, that's not who I want to be. That's not who I wanted to be remembered to be. And that definitely wasn't the person that was going to walk in the kingdom of God. So, this awakening that he had, and it was him, the awakening that he had on me and the timing that he had allowed me to begin to move in the direction I am today.
He woke you up on an airplane. Is there a story behind that?
Well, I was flying on an airplane, and I have no idea. I was flying on the airplane, and I was kind of half asleep. Again, doing another one of those 90-hour weeks, working hard, motivating everybody, and talking out of both sides of your mouth. Half awake, half asleep, and I almost felt as though there was there was nobody else around me, but there was. It was a full plane. But I just felt this overwhelming. I still half asleep, half awake. And it just said to me, I heard the voice. It said, Dan. And I kind of shook my head a little bit. And you find yourself, yes, how you doing? And that's kind of, well, how are you doing? How have you done so far without me in your life? I'd go to church. Yeah, I'd take the kids, but I was the one that was, hurry to get out and made a reason not to go. And you die, you go to heaven. Oh, yeah. No. Ask that question. And honestly, on the inside, your answer will tell you. And so he said, how are you doing? And he's kind of literally started taking me back through. And yeah, you see these successes and you see these failures. But at the time, my son is calling me Dan, and I don't remember my daughter except for her high school year. I have no memory of her when she was young, but I quantified it and I justified it by the fact that, yeah, you had great vacations, you had great homes, and yeah, you get to go to Princeton, and yeah, you're getting to go do all this, but they give it all up for their dad. And so as that went back through my mind, and as he raced me through that mind, it was, and as I woke up, the ironic thing is the plane had landed, and I was very rarely by myself. And so I end up going to a hotel that I was supposed to go to. And as I'm unpacking, I actually had a cigar. And I wasn't a big cigar smoker, but it was a Cuban. You're not going to waste a Cuban. So then I have to go outside, sit at the pool. And when you always tell the best advice, any 30-year-old man, start smoking cigars. Because when you smoke a cigar, you're not going to rush. You have nothing to do. It's not a cheap one. Key to that is smoking expensive cigars, because you're not going to put them out. You're not going to relight them, and you sure ain't going to rush through it, not unless you want to throw up. So what does it force you to do? It forces you to stop. So as I'm sitting out there and I'm all alone and I'm smoking that cigar, and then it continued and it just played through my mind. And I made a decision. In fact, if you look at my office, I've got my wife has this framed picture that says "One Life, One Focus," and it has Christ washing the feet of the disciples, because that was just such a changer for me, and it's just been a chain reaction. And now, our purpose and our mission, our purpose statement is to give glory to God in all that we do, and in our mission and in our core values, it's all in line with that. And you know what? We stay to that. And through staying to that, we have seen things that are, in all honesty, that would just blow your mind, because it's not my business, it's Christ's business. And when it's Christ's business, then what does he want me to do?
Wow, that is a great story. So for a young person in their 30s starting their own restaurant, what would you say is symptomatic of chasing the money, as opposed to doing maybe what would make them more successful over the long term?
Well, you always start out underfunded. Everybody can say, "Oh yeah, well, I went and got this funding." Well, one thing I would say to them is there's two parts to that. If you can't raise the money, you're going to fail, so you're not ready. So don't go borrow the money from friends. If you can't put a plan together that people would invest in. Don't go borrow 200 grand from dad and promise him you're going to pay him back. If you can't put a plan together that could put the funding together for your business, whatever it is, you're not ready for it. If you have to go out and, get dad's money or get Uncle Bob's money, and now if it's a plan and there's a plan that says, I'm going to give you a return, I'm going to give you a return in this, but I would tell you, it not even make it family, because most restaurants fail because they're underfunded. Well, they're underfunded because they're not ready to open yet. So go work harder, go work longer, go work more. And then through that, as you can put together the more than enough, double, whatever number you end with. If you go, I need 350,000, no, you need 7. And have the discipline to say, if I can't raise that capital or if I can't put together that deal, then it's not meant for me. That would be my advice.
So right now you own I think it was 30 Gandolfo's New York deli establishments. Can you tell me about
Petro's? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me about the process of kind of building your current portfolio, Gandolfo's and then Petro's as well?
Well, when I shared with you earlier that I was literally coming out of Sonny's Barbecue, got a daughter going to Princeton, and the 9/11 hit and literally lost every dime. I had $28 in the account and a daughter heading to Princeton. A lot of people say, I know you don't understand. I had $28 in the account. And of course, I'm in my 30s, and at that time, you talk about an ego booster because you thought you're going to be king of the world, especially leaving Corral. And so I started looking at different brands. What could I get involved in? And for whatever reason, I thought that I was going to go raise $400,000, and I had a couple of people. I could go raise $400,000 and buy the rights to a concept called Firehouse Subs, and they were available at that time in Atlanta. Well, as I'm negotiating with Firehouse Subs, Tom Gandolfo, which was he had worked for me at Golden Corral. Tom Gandolfo and his brother and his father had all worked for me at one time or another in Golden Corral, and we parted ways while they were in Golden Corral. And so while I'm sitting there trying to negotiate with Firehouse Subs. Now, with that being said, why Firehouse Subs? Well, because I literally had looked at all of them: Jimmy John's, Jersey Mike's, Subway, you name them, Cousins, Blimpies. You name them. I'd looked at all of them because all of a sudden what I realized I was good at was growing things and growing things fast. And so one thing I realized about the sandwich industry was you can't make money on one. You've got to have multiple. Where my problem is how can I be a Subway just opening up and across the street opens a Jimmy John's? There's 20% of my business, or a Jersey Mike's, or a Cousins, or a Blimpies. So what was going to make this work? How could they work? Well, at the time, Firehouse Subs, after 9/11, kind of had that fireman kick to it, right? With the steam meats and all that. So while I'm discussing with them, thinking that, this could work, my phone rings. Tom Gandolfo starts asking me, what am I doing? And that he needed a reference. So while we're having a conversation, he starts telling me about his brother's New York deli, which was Craig Gandolfo. I said, brother? I thought I knew him all. No, he's the one that you didn't let go. He says, started in Long Island, New York, and he said chased a girl back to Salt Lake City and opened up a traditional deli there. Italian, not Jewish, opened up a traditional deli there, and about went broke, and he was homesick. In Utah, ate pretty bland food, so he started making sandwiches like his friends in New York ate, and then 9 years later, he'd been voted the best sandwich in Utah, or so many years later, been voted the best sandwich in Utah for the last 5 or 6 years. So as soon as he said the word deli, it just registered in my brain like this is something we can do. This is a competitive advantage. What I liked about Chili's, I thought they were better than Applebee's and the other ones that you have. The one up here in Tennessee, it's one blank on. What I loved about Golden Corrals, I felt like they were better competitive advantage. They had on Ryan's, No Country Buffet, and we eat Western Steer and all the other ones. And so I've always looked for competitive advantages. Well, a deli. And so long story short, jump on a plane. Craig picks me up in Salt Lake at the airport in a base 1976 van with a plastic chair screwed to the floorboard. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", 290 before dinner. Craig's a big guy too. So I'm in the plastic chair with him driving down the road. He had 4 delis at the time. And, he said, I said, tell me about it. Well, I've been voted the best sandwich. I said, yeah. And he said, it's these guys work for me, and then they go and kind of get their own open, and I help them. So, you got franchise? He goes, well, no. Well, what's that? So I told him. He goes, no, eventually they'll pay me. I said, let me get this right. You got 3 guys opening delis that aren't paying you. He's like, yeah. So I started asking about food costs and labor costs, and he's going, I don't know. So I'm thinking I wasted my time. Going to get on the next flight heading back from Salt Lake, or heading back out of Salt Lake. And we pull up to this gas station with a little deli on the side of it, and in Lehigh. And we get ready to get out, and I'm hungry. And we're starting to walk up. He says, look, dude, they'll probably get busy. He said, grab a couple sandwiches and I'll get back to you. And I go, well, all right. So I walk up and look at a massive menu board. And I'm like, he goes, what do you want? I go, I have no clue. Tell you what, you just make me 2. And I went over there and sat down. Well, the place started getting busier. And he made me 2 sandwiches, an Urban Cowboy and a New Yorker. Now, remember, I'd eaten everybody's sandwiches, Jersey Mike's, Jimmy John's, Country Cousins, Blimpies. I'd used the credit cards. I flew all over the place eating. And I started eating that New Yorker, and it was the best sandwich I ever had. So I'm eating it. And then all of a sudden I leaned back, and that old deli case, it had Tupperware bowls, but in those Tupperware bowls, you had potato salad, and pasta salad, and pea salad, and macaroni salad, and these fresh salads. In my mind, I started thinking, where can you get fresh deli salads? Everybody else has chips. Then I look up on the board and I saw corned beef and I saw pastrami, and I thought, where can you go and get a Reuben, a pastrami sandwich? Where can you go and get these things? And long story short, he came back, sat down, and my whole attitude changed. And I said, let me tell you what I think we can do. And this will be my last quick story for you. So I told him, I said, let me go back, because I had not done franchising. I was going to be a franchisee. So let me go back, put some stuff together. I said, maybe we'll run an ad that says we franchise. Maybe we'll do something like that in the paper. Well, at the time, Craig didn't have 2 nickels to rub together either. And of course, I didn't really know it much. And at the time, we're sitting there, and I leave, and literally he gets table tents from Pepsi, and he writes on there, we franchise. And within 90 days, we sold $1.2 million in franchises.
Wow, incredible.
So anyway, the rest of the story goes, I kind of look at time, I want to be aware of time, but that, and then through that, I did a bunch of consultings over the years. Petro had reached out to me in the early about if I would come and do some consulting. I came and gave them some ideas. At the time, they've been around 30-something years. They liked the ideas. Apparently, they worked. They called me back, asked if I'd come back. I came back, and at that time, they asked me if I would, basically partner and help grow the brand. And we've doubled in size in the last 5 years, and we've got some really good growth patterns going. So,
do you have aspirations for further growth then in the future?
Yeah, we're going to grow. Again, keeping in perspective, because I know what my weakness is, and my weakness is to get, 1 million miles an hour. And so, where does God have us at, and what does he want us to do? And that's right now what I'm trying my best to do, is fulfill what he wants in the direction he wants us to go. And right now it is ensuring that each franchisee and each company stores, that we're able to be good stewards. And from there, we're kind of modeling, or we're kind of molding on where our steps are. I mean, one of the things for us is when you come on, we're very clear about we're a faith-based company. You'll see it in the stuff that we do. And so to us, does that line up? And if it does, great. And if not, hey, I completely understand. So we're kind of in an exciting time, especially when the pandemic hit, ended up being the best year we ever had. Very blessed from that. But again, that was a God thing. That wasn't a Dan Poole thing by any means. So, for us, we're going to grow, but we're going to do it in the manner that brings glory to him.
Restaurants are such a big part of our culture and our lives. And I think people have some idea of the roller coaster that living in the restaurant industry is, but you're kind of the perfect guest for for this podcast, because you've experienced the lows and the highs, and you've got great stories associated with all of them. We're big fans of gratitude. You've mentioned a few of your kind of mentors, but we like to let people publicly acknowledge people who have been influential in their journey. Would you like to pay tribute to any of them?
Well, again, Tom Harkins, he's no longer with us, but he actually has a book out that you can look him up. Racial Alger Award. Irwin Roberts was a phenomenal one, and even ones that I have battled. But as you look back, Eric Holmes, I learned a tremendous amount from him. He was the Barnum and Bailey of the restaurant industry. That he has been a good just again someone to look back at. I've had some awesome people that have worked with me. John Aiello has been. My son Dane works with me. I'm so blessed with him, and he just brings a calming to what we do and a drive in the positive manner. I give a lot of affection and attention to my wife, Candace. She's phenomenal.
Where can people find out more about everything you've got going on?
Just the websites, the www.petros.com, Petros. And then same thing with Gandolfo's, Gandolfos, Gandolfo's Deli. Feel free to do that, or, and my contact is there.
Okay, Dan, thanks so much for your time. It was great talking to you. You've got some great stories. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I wish you the best. God bless.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.